What do you think about this next story? Devon Archer, when he went into his hearing on Monday with the Congressional Oversight Committee, would not answer any questions from reporters, but he did decide to go on Tucker Carlson on Twitter. And I've never planned on doing this many reactions to Tucker Carlson's videos on Twitter because I've spoken about my distaste for using such long videos, and especially because it's not my content. And I want to bring you guys content on what I think and everything. And so I'm going to do a reaction video to this one just because I think it is so important that people see what he's done. A lot of great interviews. I mean, he did that one with Andrew Tate. He did the one with Ice Cube, which I reacted to last week. And now he's doing one with somebody who is at the heart of the narrative of how corrupt the Biden crime family is. And I think it's important everybody see it. And I know not everybody is in tune with going onto video or going onto Twitter to watch their video content. And so you might be on YouTube. And I even had one comment on my Ice Cube reaction video from last week that says, well, I need to go watch the full video without this dumb kid interjecting. Okay, you can think I'm a dumb kid. I don't really care. Leave me comments telling me how dumb I am. At least tell me why I'm dumb, please. But I digress. If you want to go watch the full video uninterrupted, I will leave the link in the description to Tucker's full videos. Again, because this isn't my content. And so I want to appreciate that he can go out and get these interviews with such interesting people that are at the heart of so many American narratives right now, including Andrew Tate, Ice Cube, now Devon Archer. But I want to cover it, and I will give my updates in between it. But I also have not watched this. So quick intro is today, Tucker released part 1 of his interview with Devon Archer, who obviously we know gave the damning testimony about Joe Biden's involvement with Hunter's business dealings this last week, as a former business partner of Hunter Biden. And I have yet to see this interview. I have yet to see it in its entirety. And so this is going to be kind of a blind reaction. So I don't know exactly what Archer says in it. If you want to watch the full interview, like I said, in the description of this video, I will, without me in it, the full interview without me in it, I will leave that link to it. But let's get to this video right now. I'm going to pull it up on screen and let's react to it to end out the show.
In a bunch of different businesses, what were the specific skills that he brought to clients?
Well, at the end of the day, he had a career in Washington, graduated Yale Law School, and had a very big network in DC, and brought that know-how and understanding of DC and ultimately the Biden brand.
The know-how. So as far as I could tell, he wasn't doing legal work. Correct. He wasn't in the counsel's office at Burisma, right?
No.
So the network and the Biden brand sounds like the kind of key component of
absolutely
what he was bringing.
Yep.
Do you think that he would have been in those businesses, not having a business background, without his father being in a government position?
It's hard to speculate in those regards. I mean, I think when we initially met and he talked about his advisory business, his business that needed to transition from lobbying to advisory, and the interest in private equity, it seemed, it seemed like a new and interesting network for us to expand our business. Whether he could have, been in that position, it's hard for me to speculate. But obviously, the brand of Biden, adds a lot of power when your dad's vice president.
For sure. And there was a time maybe 10 years ago when private equity, maybe like AI now, was just one of those terms people were throwing out. I'm in private equity.
Right.
But the mechanics, having done it, coming from a business background yourself, are kind of complex.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a complex business. Takes years of training. But again, the initial idea around the business that they were going to provide, the government insight and an additional network to raise capital, and then, deal with regulatory issues that you might have at the corporate level.
Right. Regulatory issues.
Exactly.
Okay. So that would be more his area.
That would be his space.
Right. But did he have a sophisticated understanding of regulation, do you think?
I think that he led a team that had a sophisticated.
Okay.
So basically what you're hearing so far is that Hunter Biden's, because this is a question that I've had, because obviously I care much more about Joe Biden's involvement because he's the actual leader of the free world as it currently stands. However, I have had underlying questions regarding Hunter's involvement with these businesses. Was he simply in there because of his father, or did he actually bring anything to the table? And as we can see right now, it's yes, he has a degree from Yale Law School. Was it nepotistic that he got it? I'm not going to say one way or the other, but I have my thoughts. And along with that, Devon Archer right here is basically saying the thing that Hunter brought to the table is his government connections, whether that's just his dad or others, his semi-understanding of government and regulation, but really, I mean, he says he had a team. He led a team of people. So it was his government connections with his dad, but other than his dad as well, that allowed him to have these positions. This is not a guy that's a self-starter. This is not a guy, when we're talking about Hunter, this is not a self-starter. This is not somebody who worked his way up from the ground up. No, it's a guy who's pretty much had everything handed to him his entire life because of the role that his family has played in American government and the high power they have had. And so when you hear the American media and the leftist media tell you that Biden is a family man just like everybody else, Joe is a family man just like everybody else, no, they're not a family that is just like everybody else. And I think it is one of the most preposterous things to say so, because Hunter, just as an example, has seemingly, at least from this testimony that we're hearing, that has just gotten everything because of his family's political connections. And so it's absurd to say that they are just a family like everybody else. And you're going to hear the liberal media fawn over that more and more and more. But let's keep hearing what Devon has to say.
Yes. I lived in Washington a long time, around a lot of regulation. Also a very complex area.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you got to be an expert in knowing the guy. And he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an expert in knowing the guy.
Right.
And who
he was an expert in knowing the guy, which was his father, who knew all the guys. So just saying, again, not confirmed, just my opinion.
was the guy he knew?
Well, he knew a lot of people, but obviously there was some familiar, his brother, his father, some of his father's siblings. So he knew a lot of people. And obviously I know you're pointing to, the father being the key relationship.
No, I'm just trying to get a sense of, Washington's not a money town.
Right.
People aren't in business in Washington for the most part. And most people don't have business skills that I noticed in 30 years of living there. So really the business of Washington is selling access. That's what it looked like to me.
Yes.
Not just Hunter Biden, but
I think that's one of the core misconceptions. I mean, it seems like when understanding a regulatory environment means selling access at the end of the day. That's how I interpret it. And I think that's how most people in Wall Street, whether they admit it or not, interpret it.
Yeah. So we've got a complex business that intersects with government. We need a guy who knows it.
Right. How do I, deal with getting a guy a visa that needs to come over for a business deal? Right. Call our lobbyist that knows the guy in DHS or used to work in DHS or, in Customs and Border Patrol, or the people at the embassy and state. They might be able to help. So there are very tactical elements that are regulatory and compliance and governance that you have to go through. And you got to know the guy that worked at the old agency that now has the lobbying firm that can go back to the agency and, get things put to the front of the line.
So the reason I'm asking this is because it's not to give the Bidens a pass, hardly, but when people say, well, there's some question about whether Hunter was trading on his father's name, if you live in Washington, that's the whole city right there.
Right. I think you know the answer to that. At the end of the day,
so
he had the best advantage to do that because of where he was. And, we thought that when we went into business, this was a great opportunity for us.
So I get it. And you're not the only one who did that.
Right. There were a lot of
Hunter
businesses.
Biden's not the only son of a famous government official who's done this, right? At all. But I just wonder, when you hear people say, well, it's kind of an open question.
Right.
About why they hired Hunter Biden. That's pretty disingenuous, no?
Right. I think at the end of it, so when you look at there are people that maybe were, sons or relatives or brother-in-laws of other high-ranking officials. But I think what we ran into and with what Hunter ran into was almost like an Icarus issue. So he got it was too close to the sun. It was too good to be true. And the connections were too close and the scrutiny too much.
Yes.
And it ended up destroying, it left a wake of a lot of destruction in businesses over a number of years.
So how many, it's been reported, and you have said that there were occasions when Joe Biden would call in with clients present on a speakerphone.
Right.
How many times do you think that happened?
I mean, over a 10-year partnership, I would, the number I'm going with is 20. That's probably the amount that I kind of record. Yeah, a lot.
20. And so here's the important thing about that, is because this is what right now everybody is speculating on. Obviously, at least at the time that I'm recording this, we do not have the full transcript of his testimony to the House Oversight Committee. And so this is the closest thing that we have to the words coming out of Hunter's former business partner, Devon Archer, coming out of his mouth. And so we know now definitively, not third party from Jim Jordan or from people that sat in the room, we now know from this interview that it was 20. at least 20 phone calls that Joe Biden was a part of. And so I want to play real quick. We are going to obviously get back into that interview, but I want to play again real quick Joe Biden discussing the business dealings before all of this testimony. Let's listen to that.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. There is zero evidence of any assertion being made.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No.
Oh, no, I wasn't involved, Joe said. No, I wasn't involved. But you were. You were involved, Joe. And we just got Devon Archer on Tucker on Twitter to say it out of his mouth that you were involved in some way. And so is it necessarily criminal? Not yet. There obviously is more investigation that needs to come out as to exactly what was discussed on these phone calls. The left likes to say it's the weather or that he didn't know who he was on the phone with, things like that. But we do know that Joe Biden lied to the American public. That is confirmed. That is true. Now let's see if there's anything else Devon reveals about this corruption and what Joe Biden lied about.
So Joe Biden, who's very much a product of Washington, of course, must have known that he was calling in to effectively a business meeting that his son was having. Good. I mean, he must have understood that was kind of what his son was selling.
Well, it's hard for me to speculate on that.
But I guess my question, just to keep it to the facts, Joe Biden, then the sitting vice president, knew that there were Hunter's business associates in the room.
Yeah, I think I can definitively say at particular dinners or meetings, he knew there were business associates, and or if I was there, I was a business associate too.
Yeah.
So I think, or if, any of the other colleagues from the DC office or the New York office were there. So yeah, at times there were. From the, to be, completely clear on the calls, I don't know if it was an orchestrated call in or not. It certainly was powerful though, because, if you're sitting with a foreign business person and you hear the vice president's voice, that's prize enough. I mean, that's pretty impactful stuff for anyone.
It's been reported, and I know that it is true, that the Hunter and his brother were very close to their dad.
Absolutely.
Which I think is great.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of kids. I'm very close to them, talk to them every day.
Yeah.
Never called them on speaker during a business meeting. That's weird. You've got a lot of kids. You're close to them.
He's like, you can see Devon there. He's like, you did this with his lips, like, yep. He's like, it's like everything in him just to be like, yeah, it is kind of weird. Maybe he's actually about to say it, but oh my God, that reaction was just to the question. And it's true though. It's true. I've had my dad. I've talked to my dad. I talk to my dad at least once a week, I'd say. And I work in a business. I've never once been in a business meeting. I've been at work and talked to my dad on the phone. Don't tell my boss, but I've never once been in one of our meetings about strategy, planning, content management, anything like that. And never once have I called my dad and been like, hey, let's talk. Let's have a conversation about marketing and everything like that. No, I've never had that conversation. You want to know why? It's because my dad wouldn't have influence over the meeting that I'm in. My dad would have no influence on that. But Hunter Biden's dad would no doubt have influence on the calls that he would be making during those business meetings and the business meetings that he's in. The vice president would have influence on that. That's undisputed. And if you don't see that, you don't see why that's weird and why Hunter would do that and how Joe could play a role in that, then you're daft. And you're a moron, frankly, if you don't see that. But let's keep going, see what else Devon has to say.
Do you call them on speaker during business meetings?
Do I call?
I mean, what is that? A grown man calling his dad on a speakerphone during a business meeting?
Right. And to be clear, sometimes the call was coming in and the speaker would go on. So it's just the president. You have to be, I mean, you understand DC, right? So the power to have that access in that conversation, and it's not in a scheduled conference call, and it's a part of your family. That's like the pinnacle of power in DC.
100%. I guess I'm pivoting against the lie that I'm hearing people tell with a straight face. Congressman Goldman, for example, that we don't really know what was going on. Really? You're taking a call from the vice president and you put it on speaker. It's not just, hey, Dad, I'm in a meeting with some buddies.
Right.
It's let me put my dad, the vice president, on speaker.
Yeah. Yep. In the rear view, it's an abuse of soft power, I'd say.
An abuse of soft power.
I think that is the quote of this interview so far. The abuse of soft power. Abuse of soft power. I wonder how much it might have profited the Biden family, this abuse of soft power. Interesting.
When did you meet Joe Biden?
Joe Biden, I met the first time probably at the 2000 convention. I think it was in LA, and then Boston was 2004. So those two times I probably shook hands as they made kind of the power circles around the you've been to them through the skyboxes. And then following that, really when our partnership started in 2008, 2009-ish, conversation started. That's when I re-met Hunter and actually had a sit down and meal with him, talked about the transition from lobbying into strategic advisory, and then kind of a some type of coalescence around having a private equity fund that would have this unique access and understanding of a regulatory environment in DC. Again, to be clear.
How many times do you think you met Joe Biden during the course of your relationship with Hunter?
How many times? I should have this off the top of my head since I've been asked so many times. Probably same thing, 20.
So I got one last question for you, and we'll do a much longer interview and get the entire story. But we found this letter, kind of amazing. It's from January 20th, 2011, which I think puts you in your late 30s, mid to late 30s. Right. Okay, so you're a younger man. This is from the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, to you personally, and it's personalized here at the bottom. Devon Archer, Rosemont Seneca Partners, that was your partnership with Hunter Biden in Georgetown. Dear Devon, I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you at the luncheon.
I'm going to let it keep going, but I want to make sure I can get the whole thing up there. So I'm going to take off my overlay so we can read the whole thing.
Yesterday, I was having trouble getting away from hosting President Hu Jintang, who was running China at that point. I hope I get a chance to see you again soon with Hunter. I hope you enjoyed lunch. Thanks for coming. Sincerely, Joseph R. Biden Jr. P.S. Handwritten, happy you guys are together. So there are many levels here. But here's the Vice President of the United States saying to you, a man in...
This is as far as I know, this is a bombshell. I mean, like, I have not heard anything else about this letter, And this letter seems to recognize that Biden would have known about the business dealings and been in some way involved. And so, again, I don't know exactly, but seems like a really flippin' big deal to me, especially when we have the guy that says that he had no involvement with Hunter's business dealings.
In his mid-30s, he was not a government official. I'm sorry, I was occupied with the guy who runs the world's largest country. I would much rather talk to you and thank you. What was he thanking you for?
Well, first of all, it's a lovely letter, and it was.
It's quite enthusiastic. It's a little weird, though, right?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of the beginning of our partnership, and he was thanking me and thanking Hunter, I think, at the end of the day, for bringing this idea of this government regulatory strategic advisory business into the private equity world, and I think he was excited about the prospects for Hunter, and he was just thanking me. I think it was a nice gesture.
It was a nice, for sure. Very polite. It gets a 10 on the etiquette scale, but he's a vice president of the United States, and he's talking about foreign business deals with you and thanking you for that.
I think, again, it goes back to my earlier point I think I hit at the time, I think I hit the jackpot in finding the regulatory environment or company that can navigate right to the top. But, obviously as time was told, being a little bit too close to the sun ends up burning you.
For sure. And it did you, and you suffered greatly for it. And this is not a criticism of you. I would think as a business guy, you use every advantage. These are not business guys. This is the vice president of the United States. He's not allowed to be working on businesses with foreign governments while he's vice president. I don't think.
Not that I know of.
But here he is
doing so.
Amazing. We'll be back. Devon Archer, thank you.
Thank you.
But it is absolutely damning to see that Joe Biden was not only aware of Hunter's business dealings, seemingly was aware of his level of involvement still questionable, but also says in there that I'd much rather not be talking to, like Tucker said, I'd much rather not be talking to the most important, one of the leader of one of the most powerful countries in the world. I'd much rather be sitting down with your private equity firm that deals with foreign business. Interesting. Very interesting interview out of Tucker Carlson. I probably will not do an entirely full reaction to the full thing, but to the full interview once that is released. I will watch it and hopefully pull some clips. But if you like this video and if you like any others like it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, and then leave me a comment. What do you think about anything that was just released? How guilty is Joe Biden? What do you think is going to come out? What lies will the media tell about it? What do you think about Vivek Ramaswamy and his comments regarding 9/11 and the skepticism of government? Everybody, I hope you like this. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And please join me again for other days of Speechless, The Daily Show. I'm your host, Phares, and you've been watching Speechless, The Daily Show.